All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Benjamin Warren. I am the manager of pipeline initiatives with the Washington Society of Certified Public Accountants. Today, we're going to talk about our associate scholarship program and some of the tips and best practices for submitting a scholarship application. Again, any questions, feel free to put them in chat, come off mute. I am here to answer your questions, help you through the scholarship application process. We're going to be talking specifically about the Washington CPA Foundation Associate Scholarship, but these tips are for really any scholarship application. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask them. A little bit about me. I am not an accountant. I do not have a degree in accounting. I have no background in accounting. I have experience with a number of not-for-profits doing a lot of similar work in kind of different environments, but a lot of community outreach and engagement. Outside of work, I serve on the board of a local radio station in Seattle, where I also host my own show. And I am a huge fan of the Seattle Mariners and really all things baseball. So if you're ever at one of our networking events and want to talk baseball or whatever you're passionate about, I am happy to chat with you at any of our events. And if you're not familiar with the WSCPA, very briefly, we are a professional member organization. So our members are primarily accounting professionals and specifically certified public accountants, but we also work with students from all backgrounds, from high school, just learning about accounting, up until, they get their CPA license, really providing support through the path to the accounting profession and getting the CPA license. We do have a student membership. It is currently $20. You get access to things like our networking events, our professional development presentations that we do virtually and in person, discounts on CPA exam review courses if you're at that point, access to some of our events specifically around engaging with professionals and firm representatives, again, introducing students to the accounting profession, what career opportunities are out there, and how do you get into those careers. Scholarships is up here. We have a couple of scholarships more around the CPA exam resources and ethics exam resources that are specific to WSCPA members, but the scholarship I'm talking about today, you do not need to be a WSCPA member to apply. A couple of member benefits if you do decide to apply. We do have our WSCPA Circle. This is our online platform, online community of our members where you can share resources and ask questions. As a student or CPA candidate, get connected to professionals who are doing the work that you see yourself in and learning from them, getting advice and tips and learning about their experience and background. So some of our student specific groups, CPA Exam Accelerator, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but all about the CPA exam. Our Emerging Leaders Committee, so planning events and networking for people who are just getting into the field. Coffee and Conversations is interaction with professionals, kind of one-on-one meetings to learn more about different firms or tax versus audit or all of those different career opportunities in accounting from the people who are actually doing that work. And our student resource group is all about sharing resources between our student members, again, asking those questions and providing support for each other. So our CPA Exam Accelerator, all about the CPA exam, strategies, tips, support between, again, our members who are going through the exam themselves. We put on fireside chats once a month with our review course provider partners, really deep dive into the CPA exam. And then our student members who join this online group get a free pair of these lucky CPA exam socks. So just a great resource there for students who are getting ready to or currently taking the CPA exam. And here are some upcoming events. You might notice that it's, a little slow around this time. It's obviously busy season for a lot of our members. So the events really kick up after that tax deadline towards the end of April. Our Tap Together Thursdays, those are kind of informal, casual, fun uh, kind of networking events where professionals, students, candidates all get together, usually at a brewery or restaurant, just to, again, have that fun, casual networking environment, chat, meet each other. There's usually games and refreshments, really fun opportunities, and they're all throughout the state. So definitely, if you're interested in those, again, some information will be provided in the follow-up email tomorrow with those events. Their next fireside chat series for the CPA exam is April 16th with Becker. And then conference networking is an opportunity to meet with professionals who are doing the work that you're interested in. So these specialized fields around governmental accounting and international tax and state tax and all of these different things don't need to sit through an 8 hour continuing education presentation, nothing like that. You get to come in, have the refreshments, chat with the professionals, really great opportunities to get that networking in with specific groups in the accounting profession. Again, all of this will be shared tomorrow with links to registration and all that sort of stuff if you're interested in joining any of these. And a lot of these are either free or very low cost, especially for the WSCPA student members. So, getting into why we are all here, this is about our scholarships. I'm going to talk very briefly about the Washington CPA Foundation. That's kind of the organizer, the host of these scholarships. We're going to get into the scholarship application itself, what it looks like, what to expect, what's required in the application. And then we're going to cover some, again, those tips and strategies around resumes, essays, and recommendations. So again, geared towards or focused on in this presentation our specific associate scholarship, but taking some of these tips around resumes or essays or recommendations will be applicable to really any scholarship that you might be applying for. And of course, any questions, go on chat, unmute, raise the hand, whatever you need to do. I am here to answer your questions about scholarships. So first and foremost, the Washington CPA Foundation. This is kind of the charitable arm of the WSCPA. So every year it provides grants and scholarships to increase access to the accounting profession and support a more diverse pipeline of accounting students. With the scholarship program, has given away more than $5 million since it's in the scholarship program's inception in 2015. Every year, it awards over 100 scholarships of varying levels. The one we're talking about today is the $2,000 level, but undergraduates who are going to be juniors and above in Washington State have the opportunity to receive $5,000 and $10,000. And if you receive a scholarship one year, you are still eligible to receive a scholarship the following year. So if you receive the associate scholarship this year and you're eligible for the undergraduate or master's scholarship the following year, definitely apply to those scholarships. Lots of money out there to accounting students who are going into the profession in Washington State. So this is the scholarship we're talking about today. This is what we call our associate scholarship. It's a $2,000 award. The deadline is April 14th, 2026. So you got about 3 weeks before this is due. That's why we have this open house, is to really get students to focus in on completing this application by this deadline. So some of the eligibility requirements here need to be a current high school senior who is going to be attending any Washington State college or university in fall 2026, or you are a college student at any grade level who is going to be attending a community or 2-year college in fall 2026. So a couple different options there, depending on where you're at in school. The high school senior, any Washington State College University, or going to a community college or 2-year college, fall 2026, you can be any grade level. Need to have a 2.5 GPA or higher and have some interest in accounting. So maybe you're 100%, I am going to major in accounting. I'm going to go the CPA route. That's what I'm going to do. Or accounting is in there somewhere. So maybe you're looking at kind of business in general, right? And accounting might be one of those majors that you pursue. So business, finance, management information systems, economics, one of those related fields, you're looking at those as well, but accounting needs to be in there somewhere. So at least some interest in accounting when you're applying for this scholarship. Again, it is a Washington State college or university, so you do need to be attending in Washington State, and then need to be a well-rounded student with community involvement. And I will talk a little bit more about what community involvement means in a couple slides. So this is what is required in your scholarship application. So in the application itself, right, you have all the application questions, contact information, what school you're planning on going to, all those sorts of things. But then you have the extra documents that are required. First is a resume, which for the associate scholarship is optional. So if you have a resume, great, upload it. It is a great way to show what your work experience is, your volunteer experience, what skills you have, those sorts of things. But if you don't have it, that's fine. I will be covering resumes and resume tips. So if you don't have one, this might be some great information to start to create that resume that you may or may not decide to include in this scholarship application. It is optional. So your score won't be lowered if you don't include it. But again, it's a great way to show the work experience, volunteer experience, skills, that sort of thing. You need your unofficial transcripts. So high school seniors, this is your high school transcripts. For those who have completed any sort of college coursework, you need to also turn in your transcripts, unofficial transcripts from college coursework. So if you're a college student right now, so you're going to the community or 2-year college, your unofficial transcripts from the college coursework you have completed so far. Excuse me. And then 3 essays. These are short, 500 words or less. Prompts are on our website. They're on the application itself, and I will cover the prompts in here as well so that you can start to prepare to get those essays ready. But there are 3 essays. They're short. 500 words or less is exactly what it means. If you can answer the prompt in 250, 300 words, you don't need to fill and probably shouldn't fill the other 200 some words just to meet that word count because it's 500 words or less. And then a recommendation. Now, for the associate scholarship, this is an online form that is completed by your recommender. So when you go into the application, you will see a spot to put your recommender's contact information, name and email address. A form will be emailed to them. They will complete it, and it will automatically be uploaded to your application. So it's not a letter, not anything that they have to create. It is an online form. The questions are already prepared for them. Makes it a little easier for folks to complete for students who are applying for the scholarship. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about just all of these different documents that you do need to include in your application. So that one extra piece, that community involvement, that is all about what your merits are, what your achievements are outside of the classroom. So you can kind of think of it like this image on the left shows your merit badges, like you might get in the Scouts. Okay, what type of community involvement have you been in? What are your leadership roles? What sort of awards have you received in school or in the community? So any of those achievements can go on the application. So again, going back to the resume, this is a great place to put some of that information. The application also has spots to put that information. So if you don't have a resume to upload, you'll still be able to include all of this information on the application itself. Community involvement can be just about anything. All of this is really what have you done outside of the classroom? So, what volunteer work have you done? Are you part of any professional organizations like the WSCPA or the AICPA? Or are there any student groups on campus or at your school that you're a part of? Are you in band or orchestra? Are you a painter or an artist? Do you do murals around town? Whatever it might be, what is your involvement in the community? Sports are a big thing as well. We understand that participation in sports can be essentially equivalent to a full-time job. So if you are in sports, especially if you're in varsity sports or you're the captain of, the soccer team, whatever it might be, make sure you're also including sports as well and leadership roles. So again, that captain of the soccer team, or you're the president of your, high school class. What leadership roles have you taken on? And then what achievement awards? So this could refer to the classroom in that, you're in the National Honor Society. So it does relate to academics, but it's awards that you're receiving outside really of the classroom, the dean's list or the president's list, the honor roll, those sorts of things. Or maybe you're receiving volunteer awards or community awards for the work you're doing in your community. And certainly any additional education, if you have certifications, if you're running START and you've taken college coursework outside of high school or along with high school, and definitely any work history, full-time, part-time, internships, any of that sort of experience, we want to know about and we want to see on the application and potentially in the resume, which is our next section right here. Are there any questions so far about the application process? Okay, I don't see any, so we're going to move on. But again, any questions, feel free to ask. So to start with resumes, especially if you've never done one, it's good to start with the basics. Even if you do have a resume, going back to the basics can be very helpful in creating a professional resume. So proofreading, length, and substance are the three key words to remember when you're going through your resume. So proofreading, making sure you're taking out any grammatical errors, you're taking out any formatting errors, punctuation, any typos, all of that sort of stuff. Proofreading can help get rid of. And there are a few tricks that I recommend students, applicants use to help with proofreading. First is to change the font. So make the font bigger or make it bold or do double spacing. Sometimes that can help reset what you're looking at, kind of pick out some of those things that you might not notice as you're kind of glazing over reading the same font, the same resume over and over again. The other tip is also to read from the bottom up or back to front. Now, if you're a high school senior, one-page resume is about all you should be submitting. So bottom up, back to front, however you want to say it. This also helps reset your focus. By the time you get to the end of a resume, especially if you're doing it over and over again, that bottom stuff or the stuff on the back, maybe you're missing it. So starting from the back or the bottom and reading to the beginning, that's going to help reset and maybe catch some of those things that you might miss towards the end of your resume. And then consider length. I already kind of mentioned this, especially for high school students. You're really probably looking at one page. My resume is at 2 pages. Work experience, volunteer experience, 20 some years, looking at about 2 pages. So for this application, 1 page resume is going to be enough. Going over that, you're probably going to get into some of that substance issue, right? What are you including on your resume that maybe you really don't need to? Are you listing out all of the books you've read in a particular subject? Maybe it's accounting, but that probably doesn't really work very well on a resume. So really keep the substance as a consideration when you're going through creating or updating your resume. I'll also note here with this kind of the proofreading and the substance is keep in mind the formatting, right? Especially when you're thinking of a first time resume or going into the accounting profession, right? This isn't an application for graphic arts or web design, anything like that, right? We want a professional, um, you know, keeping pictures out of it, maybe not being fancy with the font or the color of the font, any of those things. Simple, black and white, keeping everything pretty much the same font. You might have bold here or italics there, but everything pretty much the same throughout the application. Again, avoiding pictures or any really graphical arts formatting sort of stuff. And so once you get through the basics, you got that down, then you can start to concentrate on some of the new rules, so to speak. Um, Above the fold, first one is keep the best stuff on the top third of your resume. Um, as I mentioned, when you're reading your resume, you're going to read it top to bottom, right? So you're going to see the important stuff first. Same with anybody who is going to be looking at your resume, they're going to notice the top stuff first. So keeping, education is usually at top. That summary statement that you see here, ditching the objective, having that important stuff at the top is going to be helpful for folks when they first glance at your resume. That's what they're going to see. And then that summary statement, right? An objective statement can usually be pretty generic, right? Everybody really has the same objective when they're submitting a resume. It's, I want this scholarship, I want this job, you should choose me, right? So it can get pretty generic. Whereas the summary statement is really going to say, this is who I am, this is what my resume says, and this is what benefit I'm going to bring to the scholarship, to the job. Please accept me. So keeping that in mind as you're writing the summary, really summarize, right? That's why it's called the summary statement. Summarize what your resume says, summarize who you are and why you would be the best candidate for the job or the scholarship or whatever it is this resume is for. And I'll cover that a little bit more detail in just a minute. Don't need to worry about your address. You still need some sort of contact information on a resume. How else is somebody going to get in touch with you? But you don't need a mailing address on your resume anymore. And then consider the New York Times test. So the information you're putting on your resume, what if it appeared on the front page of the New York Times? How would you feel about that? Is the information correct? Is it accurate? Does it look good or professional? Are those typos, those grammar errors, those formatting, is everything in line? Do you feel comfortable if it were to show up on the front page of the New York Times? And so when we're talking about the summary statement specifically, some things to keep in mind are keep it short and sweet, right? This is again that summary of your resume. So 2, maybe 3 sentences. And this can really be helpful as you gain more experience. So once you get into a two, maybe a three-page resume, right? Keeping the good stuff at the top is going to be much easier if you have that summary statement. So summary statements can be really helpful in, again, summarizing your experience and who you are and how you would appeal to someone as a candidate for a job or a scholarship. Highlight your skills in your summary statement. Make sure they are applicable to what you're applying for. So they're applicable to that job, or in this case, to the scholarship. One way to do that is using specifics. So, specifics of your experience or your skills and certifications really tie into what you're applying for. So with this scholarship, maybe you are a member of the WSCPA, or you've taken accounting classes in high school or college, or you've done, volunteer work with tax preparation, those sorts of things. And really capturing the keywords can help with that summary statement. So go into the description for this application, right? Look at the WSCPA website. Look at the landing page when you first start the scholarship application. Read what the application or the scholarship is about. Read what the Washington CPA Foundation is about. Tie that into what your experiences are, tie that into your resume, tie that into your summary statement as well. And then that applies to building a resume for a job as well, reading the job description, using those keywords, and building it into your resume as well. So here's a couple kind of what is an objective versus a summary. You can see the objective pretty general, pretty generic, right? I want this job, right? I have these general skills, whereas your summary is going to put in specific skills about the benefit this individual is going to bring to the scholarship or job or whatever it is they are applying for. And then finally, when you're looking at your resume, and certainly the summary statement, how do you summarize your past experience? So whether it's job or work experience or volunteer experience, education, how are you summarizing it? Going back to those basics, right? The substance and the length, right? If you have 5 bullet points describing one area of, your work or volunteer experience that you spent like 6 months in, that's a lot of extra words for something that you may not have really had that much experience in. So really thinking about how are you summarizing your past experience and then really highlighting what your strengths are. What do you do well? What sets you apart? Especially if you have some of those unique experiences or unique skills and certifications that, again, you can highlight. Considering the situation, what are you looking for? How can you contribute? This is a scholarship application for students who are interested in accounting. So keep that in mind as you're building out your resume and then sell them, right? Convince them why they should select you. This can be very helpful with the summary statement, right? Really setting yourself apart. But it can also be um, a positive in the resume itself as you are kind of building out, deciding what experiences to keep or not to keep. You're at that page and a half, and you need to cut it back a little bit. What experience, what skill, what certification works best? What is really going to sell this resume to the person who's going to be looking at it? Any questions about resumes?
How far back can we put stuff on there? Like from high school, if we got like first place in state for axe throwing, would that be a silly thing to put on there? Sorry, I've
I,
put that on, gotten jobs for it before because they loved it. So
mhm. I mean, that's a very interesting, very unique one. It depends on how far back it is. I mean, if you're,
I would say like
10,
2009 is pretty far back there.
2009 would be pretty far back there. Yeah, for my resume, I don't even keep much from college other than my education, right? Like the volunteer experiences, I might switch it around depending on what I'm applying for. But I really go back 5, maybe 10 years. Again, it really depends on what I'm applying for. So something like high school, which would have been, 20 some years for me, I wouldn't continue to put on there. So yeah, it really just depends, but high school, probably not at this point. I mean, if you're like 4 or 5 years removed, you might put something like that on there, depending on what other experience you've gained and what it is you're applying for. All right. Well, we will move on to our S. I think I saw somebody hop off of mute. Was there another question?
Hi. Yes, I for sorry. Um, I forgot how to raise my hand on here. Um, so I know at least for me, I'm someone who likes to kind of know both the pros and cons. Is there any merit to adding kind of here's what I struggle with or kind of what might be um
No,
kind of
that
stepping
usually gets
stones?
brought up in the interview, right? They want to see what your strengths are. So having that prepared for an interview, in this case with the scholarship, there isn't an interview. So maybe you might mention something, specifically, we'll talk about this in the essays really. But maybe you had a semester where you had lower grades. And so in your essays, you could explain that. In the resume itself, it's really what are my experiences, where are my strengths, and then in the interview or this case of a scholarship, your essays might be able to pull out some of those challenges or weaknesses, so to speak, where you might want to address those if you think a reviewer would notice them or want to call attention to them.
Got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh. All right, so yes, essays. That is a good link into essays here. First and foremost, is it compelling? You will see this stated a couple times in this presentation, and I always tell students this. I also tell our reviewers this: passion, service, and storytelling. So what we want to see first and foremost is a student's passion. For this scholarship, we hope to see that passion for accounting, or at least the passion that someone is interested in accounting, right? Maybe they're not saying, yes, I know I'm going to major, especially as a high school senior, right? We understand they might not be 100%, I'm going to major in accounting, but we want to see that curiosity, that passion for learning about accounting. And then service. So it goes back to some of that merit that I mentioned, right? Those achievements. What have you done outside of the classroom? Where are you providing service to your community? And then storytelling, right? This is your story. Use your unique voice. Provide that compelling story as you're writing the resumes. Then you go into, is it succinct, right? The 500 words, to some people that might seem like a lot. To some people that might not seem like enough, right? They need 1,000 or 2,000 words to really tell their stories. So 500 words, really keep that in mind. Again, if you can answer it in 300, that is keeping it succinct, and you don't want to spread it out with a bunch of filler just because you want to hit the 500 word mark. So keep it simple, keep it easy to read while telling that story. Certainly, is it true? This goes to the resume as well. Don't stretch the truth. Don't exaggerate, right? If you're putting that you were, a manager of a department at Amazon, right? A director or something like that, and you're a, high school senior, reviewers are going to pick up on that. Hiring managers are going to pick up on that. Keep it true. Don't stretch the truth. And, that New York Times thing, right? Part of that is when, reporters, journalists are putting that into the newspaper, there's usually a lot of research that goes into it. So researching that resume that you put out there that might go on the front page of the New York Times, any of those untruths, those falsifications are going to be found out and could very severely jeopardize the scholarship or the job or whatever it is you're writing an essay or using a resume for. And then proofed. Just like the resumes, you want to have that essay proofread. Do it yourself. Use those tips with the back to front, with the changing the font, especially with the essays, and with the resume as well. Have somebody else look over it. Is there a resource at your school or on campus, right? Like a writing lab? Is there a student group that you might be able to bring it up with, or an educator, your teacher or professor? Is there a friend who's willing to help you out, right? Have at least one other person look it over and give you some feedback on what that resume or essay might need to make it even stronger. So, like the resume, you have kind of this path to developing your essays, really considering what you're putting in to the essay. So, first, what is your story, right? This is the storytelling piece. This is your unique voice, your unique experiences. How are you putting those into your story? And how are you putting into your story for the audience that you are providing this story for? So this scholarship, the foundation reviewers, they are going to be accounting students, seniors, master's students. They're going to be accounting students, higher level accounting students getting ready to graduate, and they're going to be accounting professionals. So CPAs who've been in the profession for enough time that they've at least gotten their CPA license. Some of them are going to be hiring managers in accounting firms, those sorts of things. So it's an accounting focused audience. So how are you talking about accounting, your interest in accounting, your passion for accounting? How are you telling your story to these people who have maybe similar backgrounds to what your path into accounting has been? And what makes you stand out? There might be some similarities, right? These folks have gone through the process of getting into the accounting profession. Some of them are still in school going through accounting coursework. But what sets you apart? That unique story, that unique experience that you can speak to in a convincing and compelling way, and focus on the details. Don't let distractions cost you points. Again, that 500 words is 500 words or less. Don't ramble, don't provide unnecessary details just to fill out 500 words. Use specifics. Use, when you're planning on graduating high school, or when you're going to take your first accounting class if you haven't done that yet, or how you're going to learn about accounting if you haven't taken accounting yet, right? You're going to talk to some CPAs and other accounting professionals, right? Really speak to the specifics, focus on the details, but don't start to ramble. Don't get distracted as you're kind of telling your story. Keep it focused. So the first essay, these are the actual prompts for the essays. Again, there are three of them, so I'll go through all three. They're on our website. They're on the application itself, but I want to make sure you have them and kind of talk through them a little bit so you're prepared over the course of the next 3 weeks to get put together a really strong set of essays before the deadline. So the first essay is all about, um, and I didn't, oh, and I realized I didn't change this. I apologize for that. The first essay is who inspired you, right? What about accounting inspires you or you're passionate about? What about it interests you? Why are you looking at it as a potential major or career opportunity? So really getting into this, maybe there was a specific class or a specific teacher, or a specific mentor that you talked to, right? What is it that drew you into accounting, has captured your interest, makes you want to learn more about it, or, you know, that passion for, yes, I am going to study accounting. Yes, I'm going to be a CPA. I know all of that, even though, I am a high school senior, haven't really taken accounting classes. What is it? Really speak to that passion side of things in this essay. And so this is where this section is different, is it's the how does this help? So essay 2 is all about how does the scholarship help you in your academic and professional goals, right? This is going to allow you to take an additional class that's going to be an accounting class or a related subject to really help you get an idea of what you want to major in. It's going to help you, you know, put on your resume, and it's going to help you build a connection with the accounting community. Again, this is kind of where those specific examples are going to be helpful. What are your specific academic professional goals? How does this scholarship help you meet those goals? And then essay 3, this is where this one lines up. Share your experiences. This is where that storytelling piece really comes in with your unique voice. So this one is tell us up to 3 things. And I emphasize that a little bit, up to 3 things. If you put one thing that you really want to focus on, that is fine. If you want 2 things, that is fine. 3 is fine, right? If you start rambling 4 and 5 and you have, a bunch of different bullet points or something like that to really spell it out, you're not focusing on the prompt, not following the prompt. Reviewers are going to notice that. So 1, 2, 3 things, up to 3 things about yourself. So I mentioned with that question, right? Um, the lower grades, right? So maybe you want to talk about, during this semester, there was a family issue I had to deal with, don't need to go into specifics or anything like that, but you can talk about, yes, I understand that I struggled academically. This is what I'm doing, right? You can see in my transcripts, my grades are getting better. This is, I'm getting a tutor and I'm going to these open lab hours and, again, the specifics about how you're, working on the academics. You can also talk about your extracurriculars or hobbies. I've seen some where they talk about, they love surfing. They might tie some of that back into accounting, right? That, I go surfing with my accounting buddies, or I talk to, the owner of the surf shop about, how he manages the accounting side of things, right? So you can, go personal and explain some of the academic and professional things. You could go fun, right? This is really speaking to you as an individual. So going back here, stand out. What makes you different? You can really talk about who you are outside of the classroom, outside of accounting. What do you enjoy doing? What are your hobbies? Those extracurriculars, right? The volunteer or the orchestra or sports or the arts. Who are you as an individual? Now, with the essays, one thing that has come up more and more often is the use of AI, chat GPT, generative AI, all of those things. It is a useful tool. They can be helpful with proofreading. Maybe it sets up an outline or helps you generate ideas for these prompts. However, you should not use it as a replacement. This is a supplement, it is a tool. If you use it, you are taking away that authenticity. You're taking away your voice, your unique experiences, and just relying on whatever this tool can come up with that may or may not be real, right? That AI hallucination you may have heard. And again, going back to the resumes and what we've talked about already with the essays, make sure it is true. Don't always get that with the AI. Use other resources, right? If you are using AI as a tool, that's okay, so long, again, as it's not writing your essays for you. Use those other resources, the writing lab, or the student group, or the teacher, or the mentor, or somebody else, some other tool that can help you with this process. Being here, being part of this presentation, or listening to the recording, that is a great way to do it as well, to get some of those tips in writing your essays. But AI just takes your voice out of it, and it is noticed, right? We're getting to, we're kind of in that point where it's not perfect, may never be perfect, but right now people can usually tell, because it does strip that authenticity, that voice, that uniqueness to a person in the writing, when it's completely AI generated. So remember, here again, passion, service, storytelling. That passion and interest for accounting, your service, the work you're doing in your community, where those extracurriculars are, those sorts of things. And then that storytelling, your voice, your experience, it's your story. So tell it as yourself. Any questions about essays? Okay. All right. I will go on here to recommendations. So again, the recommendation is an online form that is completed by your recommender. So they're not writing a letter completely from scratch. There are like 3 or 4 questions that they're answering. So, like a couple sentences each, really talking about who you are as a student or a mentee or, a volunteer or somebody that is working in this organization, those sorts of things, right? Really helps reduce some of the burden on the recommender, just filling out a form rather than writing something from scratch. So it starts with, who do you ask? Usually with scholarships, I see applicants ask educators. They are great resources for these. They know usually the student pretty well. They know what classes they've taken, how they've taken leadership in those classes, how they're doing academically, if they're really connected with the student, how they're doing professionally or outside of the classroom. But it also might be someone who's not academically connected to the student. So the supervisor at your job or your volunteer coordinator, maybe you have a mentor or somebody that you're connected with outside of the classroom, a professional outside of the classroom. Really, so long as it's somebody who is not a friend or family member, right? So like your classmate, the buddy you sit next to, in, your business class or whatever. So long as it's not that, not your mom or dad or brother or sister, grandpa, grandma, not a friend or family member, find someone who has that connection to you that you can ask. Usually educators are great again because they have that connection, but they also get a lot of these requests as well. So they understand really what the process is. Supervisors, volunteer coordinators probably get these quite a bit as well. So find somebody that works best for you, who's going to give you a good recommendation. When do you ask is right now. We have about 3 weeks until the deadline is up. So if you are applying for the associate scholarship and you have not asked yet, ask now. 3 to 4 weeks is usually when they go in. 2 weeks can be okay, but you're really cutting it close. A week, 2 days, you're really putting the recommender in an awkward position. Ask as soon as possible. So, application deadline, April 14th. We're coming up on 3 weeks. If you haven't asked somebody already, ask really by the end of this week would be ideal. What you should provide is just a little bit of information about what you're applying for, right? This is a scholarship for students interested in accounting. This is why I'm applying for it. If you can provide a resume or at least some description of what you're doing outside of the classroom, that can be helpful. Gives the recommender a little bit more information, can speak a little bit more towards what you are doing academically outside of the classroom, how it all connects to the scholarship. Make sure they know the name of the organization and the scholarship that you are applying to and the deadline. The name is very important because we do sometimes see a recommender submitting something for like a job, right? This is a job application, a job recommendation that they're providing it to, or a different scholarship, right? So making sure they know what this is for can be really beneficial. A reviewer sees, I recommend this student for this job. They know that the student didn't really take the time to explain to the recommender what was needed. And make sure they know the deadline, because if they miss the deadline, your potential to lose out on the scholarship increases, right? Sometimes we have flexibility, but do not count on it with the deadline. Make sure they have it in by the end of the day on April 14th. So once you've asked, make sure you follow up. If they have, especially if they haven't updated you, ask for them to, but if they haven't, check in with them before that deadline. So that Friday before the 14th, right? Going into that weekend, check in with them. That way they have the weekend. Oh, yeah, I have the weekend now. I can get that done and, turned in or uploaded, submitted before the deadline. Once you've confirmed that they've done that, send a thank you, right? Show your appreciation. That way, they're more likely to do it for you again in the future. They appreciate that thank you, and it can reflect on, again, if you ask in the future. If you don't think you have anyone to ask, really consider finding an educator. Again, they process a lot of these usually, so they will, usually be able to have the availability, the opportunity to say yes. So find an educator that you think will give you a good recommendation. And it doesn't hurt to ask, right? If you're not 100% sure, just ask, right? If they say no, try to find somebody else. But if they say no and you can't think of anybody else, unfortunately for this, you wouldn't be eligible for the scholarship, right? We do need a recommendation, but keep it in mind for next year or for that next scholarship, right? Keep in mind that person that you want to ask for next year, really make an effort to connect with them throughout the year so that when it comes time to make that request again, you know somebody who will write that letter of recommendation for you. So as we wrap up here, deadline April 14th, end of the day 11:59 p.m. Make sure you submit everything, even if you have only entered the recommender's contact information, name and email. You don't need to confirm, right? Check your application or anything like that, that it has been uploaded, right? That goes through us at the WSCPA. So just confirming with them on the side, submit the application. once you have everything uploaded and that recommender added in your application. You can start now and then save as you go. So you can work on getting some of those documents put in. If you have any questions, need any assistance, please reach out to me. That foundation@wscpa.org email goes directly to me. Use me as a resource. I am happy to answer any questions, help with any part of the process to get your application in by the deadline. Troubleshooting, try switching browsers, log out, close the browser, those sorts of things. If you have issues, you can reach out to Kaleidoscope or reach out to me. I can try to walk through some troubleshooting or get you connected to Kaleidoscope for support. Some final resources here. Again, I am that resource with the WSCPA, even if it's not for scholarships. You want to talk about the accounting profession or get connected to a professional who can give you firsthand experience, since I don't have any background in accounting, professional development, whatever, use me as that resource. Please reach out. We do have a student news blog on our website, posts a lot of great information for students getting into the accounting profession. Our YouTube channel has some really great videos from some of our members talking about the accounting profession. Externally, use your campus, use your school, those student groups, find something that's going on. If you're not able to take accounting classes at your school, right? If you're in high school and they don't offer it, find, an online resource that might at least introduce you to some of those concepts, or find, the YouTube videos, or, just do a web search to see what comes up. The Scholar Budget podcast is a great resource, learning more from other scholarship providers about best practices in submitting applications. And then there's all sorts of scholarship directories here. I'll send links to those in the follow-up email tomorrow. So there are all sorts of other opportunities for scholarships. If you're not eligible for this one, or you're looking for additional tuition assistance, these are great resources to turn to. Some additional reasons why you should apply for the scholarship, not just about the tuition money. You get the recognition. We have a reception every year, should be around June 2nd this year. It's a VIP reception only for scholarship recipients and some of the professionals at the WSCPA. So you get some of that VIP access to network with firm representatives and CPAs and other accounting professionals. Add it to your resume or LinkedIn, wherever, to, again, with that recognition. And on top of that, you get a free year of student membership with the WSCPA. So you get access to all the additional resources and benefits if you're selected to receive a scholarship. I will send this link out. I know we're at time here. If you complete the survey about this presentation by April 15th, you'll be entered to win a gift card. So I will send that out. Make sure to complete that survey as you're working on the scholarship application. Any final questions as we wrap up here?
Not really a question, but thank you for sharing the information. It's really appreciated.
You are very welcome. And if there are any questions, you think about any come up while you're doing the scholarship application, please feel free to reach out to me. Find me on LinkedIn, find, the WSCPA resources. We are here to help you, to support you in learning more about the accounting profession or getting into accounting as a career, and certainly the CPA license. So please feel free to reach out to me. Again, I'll send all this out tomorrow in a follow-up email, all this information. So if anything comes up then, feel free to reach out to me then. But other than that, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate having you on the presentation today. and have a wonderful evening.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Have a good day.
Yeah.